Filling out your W-4 form is kind of like navigating public transportation in New York or Boston to get to an event across town. It's not impossible, but you need to take your time, read the signs, and understand how the system works. It's a bit complex and takes some focus, but if you stay sharp, you can get where you need to go without getting lost or pulling your hair out.
If there's anything that we really enjoy, it's helping clients fill out government forms. So today we get to dive into the W-4. So big day for us. The W-4 is important, Austin, because it gets us an accurate amount of tax withholding so the government doesn't come knocking on our door at the end of the year, nor do we give a loan to the government interest-free throughout the whole year. So as close as we can get to the actual amount of withholding that needs to take place, the W-4, if we fill it out correctly, can be a nice tool. But there is a little complexity here. It's not overwhelming. There are a couple different ways that we can go. And so we're going to show on the video visually that process today.
So Spencer, as we think about the W-4, can you walk us through the actual form in itself?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So as we think about the W-4, there are 5 different steps that we need to look at. The first step is really easy. You can see on the form that we've got pulled up here, it's personal information. So you just put in name, address, city, your social security number, and then this last piece, part C here, is your filing status. So whether you are single or married filing joint or head of household, choose the one that applies to you. Now, steps 2 through 4 introduce some of the complexity. What we will do is we'll circle back to an option that you have here in step 2A, which is kind of to bring all of the information together, to put it into the government website, and then to have them guide you in how you need to complete the W-4 form. So Austin's going to do that for us in just a second. If you don't want to bring everything together, and that process might take 10 minutes or so, if you don't want to take that time, you just want to do something a little bit simpler, then you could go this path, which is basically using step 2 and part B or C. So use part B if you have multiple jobs. Either you're a single filer or a head of household, you work multiple jobs, and one job pays you a whole lot more than another. So that one job that pays you a higher amount is at least double the other job. Or if you are a married filing joint, and let's say you have 2 jobs and one spouse has a much higher income than the other spouse. So again, at least twice as much as the other spouse. That would be good to use step 2, line B here. Now, if both jobs are relatively equal in terms of their pay, at least the lower income job is more than 50% of the higher income job, then you could click just box C here and move along and not have to move through some of these other pieces. But we're going to look at using step 2, part B here. So in this, if you use this multiple jobs worksheet, what you need to do is know that you're going to enter an amount for extra withholding. What's essentially happening here is because you have 2 jobs, you're getting more income, and the form is only set up to kind of calculate the amount of income that would need to be withheld and passed along to the IRS if you're starting from kind of a $0 position. But if you have 2 jobs, then those stack on each other and you're paying a higher level of tax. So you need to add a little bit more withholding, at least for that higher income job. So this is what it helps you here. If we look at the multiple jobs worksheet on page 3, we're going to come with an outcome that I'll show you how we get to right here eventually, that is 4C. So with this, we'll come down here, and this is, again, page 3. We'll work through this multiple jobs worksheet. Now, in this one, we're going to assume that there are 2 jobs, and we're going to assume that in this example that John Doe is married to Jane Doe, that they have jobs, and that John and Jane have unequal pay in their jobs. That we'll say in this example that John has income that is $200,000, that Jane has income that is $50,000. So in this 2-job scenario, it's going to direct us to go down to page 4 and use this worksheet. So what we're going to do here is notice that the higher paying job annual taxable wage and salary is here on the left-hand side. So we're going to use this to locate this row here. So $200,000 would be between $150,000 and $239,999. And then Jane's salary would be $50,000. So that is in between $50,000 and $59,999. So the overall amount of extra withholding that's suggested would be $10,910. So we're going to take that highlighted number here, and it would be a different number if you were a single filer, and let's say you worked 2 jobs here, you'd actually have a higher amount of withholding even than what we had up here. So this estimate would be, again, that you'd have about $14,960 withheld if you had one job that was at $200,000 and one job at $50,000. Again, we'll go back to the way that we've used this spreadsheet here, $10,910. We're going to take that number and we're going to go back up to this multiple jobs worksheet and put it in right here. Now, there's a different process that you could use for 3 jobs. But if we look at this sheet, we're just going to use that 2 jobs and we're going to put in the number of pay periods. So let's assume in this example that John has a monthly pay period. He gets paid at the end of every month. So he's going to have 12 of these through the course of the year. So he's going to want to have $909 withheld. This is a rounded number, but $909 withheld at every pay period. So this is the outcome here in line 4. What we do is we take this and we go back up to 4C and we put it in right here. So this is the extra amount of tax that should be withheld in every pay period. Now, there are some other pieces that the government allows you to put in that this will, again, influence the amount that's withheld there. One of those that's independent, say, from your job is whether you are claiming dependents or other credits. So if you have children that are under the age of 17 who are dependents, then you would enter it right here. So let's say you had 3 dependents under the age of 17 who are children that you are claiming, then you would put in $6,000 here. In this example, we've put in 0, and so there would be no extra amount that would be a credit here. You can see that's come out here. There are also a way that you could have other dependents that are not qualifying children under the age of 17. Say if you were taking care of a loved one who was older there, then you would have an opportunity for a dependent credit there of $500. Again, in this example, we don't have that put in there. Now, there are situations where clients have other income that is not from jobs that have tax withholding. So we might have, for instance, a client that has $500,000 in a non-qualified account that is earning 4% interest every year. Well, that would be $20,000 of income. So in this circumstance, we put in for John and Jane that they have $20,000 of income that's not accounted for, say, in their earned income. There's no withholding that's made on this because in a non-qualified account, there's not withholding that's put together. So we're also presuming, of course, in this case, that there's not estimated tax that's being paid on this level of income. We also have an opportunity to look at deductions. So this is another part of the fun of this spreadsheet is if we look at this government form, the deduction side of things says, well, you've got a deductions worksheet on page 3. Now, you may recall if you're married filing joint that you have a standard deduction of $29,200 here in 2024. So you would only be itemizing if you have deductions that are above and beyond that. So in this case, what we're going to say is that you've got $40,000 of charitable gifts, you've got $5,000 of mortgage interest, you've got $5,000 of property taxes that you're paying. So a total of $50,000 of itemized deductions. Well, that's going to be above and beyond that $29,200 that you would get otherwise. And so it's going to go above and beyond by a sum of $20,800. We're not going to assume that there's any kind of student loan interest or deductible IRA contributions or other kinds of things in here, that instead that we've got $20,800. So we're going to take that deductions worksheet, we're going to bring it back up here, and we're going to enter in $20,800 in here. Now, you'll notice in step 4, this is not something that you use these numbers and you add them together and they create another number. This is pieces that would be keystroked into the government system, and then they would come up with an actual amount that would be withheld on a per pay period. But each one of these pieces is helpful for the government to understand because in this circumstance, they're seeing that you're going to have a little bit higher level of deductions here. So they might need to withhold a little bit less, all other things equal. They also see that you have a higher level of income, so you might need to have a little bit more withheld, all other things equal. And then you've got 2 jobs here, so they're also going to calculate that you need to have another amount withheld above and beyond what would be typical in your higher income job. Now, that leaves us with an important point here, is that when you fill out the W-4, you're only filling out these pieces, steps 3 and 4 in particular, for one of your jobs. And the guidance is to do that on the higher income job. So after you've gone through this entire process, then you sign and pass that along to your employer, and you should be in good stead. Now, if you don't want to go this path, and there's a lot of different things that you kind of have to look at in terms of this form and reference points and such, and it doesn't include everything that's out there, then you can go a different path, and you can enter everything into a government website, and that would be at www.irs.gov/W4app. And Austin's going to walk you through how you do things if you went that path.
Well, Spencer, thanks for working us through that paper version. So you mentioned the W-4 filing application that you can use from the IRS's website. It's filled out there on the form, but what you do is you essentially put in all that information. It's also got places for credits and deductions and other places that maybe are a little bit more robust than that software. So we're just going to walk through this using those same assumptions that you put in earlier. So it's going to ask that same information. What is your married status? What is your filing status? Are you single, married, filing joint, separate, etc.? Do you or your spouse have a job or pension that has federal income taxes withheld? So we're going to fill this out as if we've got those 2 earnings. And I'm going to take this off that I plan to claim dependents on my return. So now we're going to go to next. And we're going to say we've got 2 jobs. Both of them are going to be salaried. One's going to be for myself. The other is for my spouse. Both jobs are held all year. You could do this dependent on those, but we're going to assume that both of these jobs are annual jobs. Again, you get paid monthly. So this is a little bit different, and where it might be wise to go ahead and pull out the last pay stub that you have when you're filling this out. So for this person, for John, we've got him file his most recent pay period ended on May 31st, and his most recent pay date was at that same time. And so he has, again, that $200,000 of income, as we see here. And so his gross pay was $16,666.67. And the wages that it's calculating year to date, again, just January through May, would be $83,000. So, or 83,000 and change. So then it says, based on that information, it looks like your total income is $200,000 for the year. You can say, yes, that is correct. And so we went ahead and estimated that for John, because we don't have his pay stub, because John is fictional, that he is paying $2,750 per pay period of federal taxes. So year to date, if you take $2,750 and multiply it by 5, that's $13,750. Again, to make this simple, we decided not to say his contributions to a 401k, HSA. If those things are true about you, you can put that in if you're getting a bonus. But we don't have any of those, so we're going to just check none of these. And then we're going to do that same thing for the second source of income. And we have calculated out here, again, that this job is paying $50,000 a year, that the pay period ended in May. So then we come down, there's $500 of taxes being withheld for a total of $2,500 per year. And we put none of the above. Again, you can make this as granular as you want based on your specific situation. So then we're going to also say that we have investment income of $20,000 a year of qualified dividends and no other earnings anywhere else, and that we're not withholding from any other sources, nor are we making estimated payments. So then we click next. You can make any adjustments. We're not making any adjustments on any of these things, so we're just going to click next once again. But again, if you have student loan interest, health savings account deduction, all of those things you can input here. So then we're going to look and see if standardized deduction or itemized deduction is going to be more beneficial. So we're going to do those same things that Spencer walked you through. We've got $5,000 of mortgage interest, $5,000 of state and local taxes, and then $40,000 of charitable giving. So then it says itemized deductions are $50,000. These folks have no QBI deductions. We're going to click next. Tax credits, we're saying they are each 55 years old. And then if you have any of these tax credits that you can use, child and dependent, foreign tax credit, educational, retirement savings, on down the list, you can enter any of those tax credits that you presume that you will be receiving for the year. So then once you click next, it's going to load your result, and it says your expected tax withholding for the year is $39,000, whereas your expected tax obligation is $37,106. So it's projecting that you've got a refund owed to you of about $1,894. And so that is where you're at currently with the W-4. So it's nice here, just like Spencer walked you through that W-4 form on paper, now we've got it virtually in front of you. So it says income source 1 of 2, my job or my spouse's job, with that pre-tax wages of $200,000. And so how do you adjust your W-4? Well, you can download a pre-filled form. You could also come up here and print it out. And so if you print it out, then you've got that information in front of you. But if you download that pre-filled form, it will be really helpful. So then all you're going to have to do is fill out your first name, last name, social security, your address, your city, and then it even highlights for you that you are going to check that married filing joint section. And then you're going to leave all things in step 2 blank. And then it's going to tell you why you need to do that. Leave this blank because the estimator's recommendation already takes multiple jobs into account. You're going to leave the dependents blank because you have no dependents that we put into this. And then for those adjustments, it's going to say enter an amount of $800 in step B, 4B here. So those are those deductions. If you downloaded the pre-filled form, it's going to be entered for you. And then you're going to put $480 of extra withholding per pay period. Then you sign and date that. And then for your spouse, you can do the exact same thing. Download that pre-filled form and sign it and date it. And at that point in time, you are done. Your additional withholdings is going to be taken care of. And again, you can look at this, edit your information if you really desire to do that. But I'd say the easiest thing to do here is probably just as you've gone through those results, downloading those 2 forms and having that information filled out for you, checking it, making sure it looks accurate, and then deciding, okay, I'm going to go ahead and sign this and send it over to my employer.
One of the things to note is that the outcome of the paper form and the outcome of the electronically generated form that Austin walked through are a little bit different, but they get the computer on the IRS's side of things. They get that to the same point so that the actual amount of withholding should be fairly consistent across those. But there are different fields because of the way that is generated.
So the last thing we want to touch on is a couple of mistakes that you can make when filling out your W-4. One, just not updating it. Let's say you've had a child or multiple children since you started your job. If you don't update your W-4 when that happens, specifically for that higher earning spouse, we want to make sure the dependents are only claimed on one W-4 form and that of the higher earning spouse. Well, if you don't do that, then you're not going to have the right amount of W-4 withholdings. Additionally, if you don't add in that additional income, if you fill out your W-4 form, maybe just when you had W-2 income, then let's say you receive an inheritance or you take on more work and then you neglect to update it, that's a mistake that you can make. Finally, if you don't use that IRS tool, as you can see, that's really a robust tool to help you really determine what is going to be the best calculation and how to fill out that W-4 form. Again, we'll leave a link in the description below for you to look at that IRS tool and then to see, is your W-4 filing correct? Clients, if you have questions about this or any of these other topics that we talk about in these financial planning overview videos, please, we would love to talk with you about it at our next meeting. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. If you like these financial planning videos, please share with a friend, and if you have questions, go to our website at SeriousRetirement.com. This content was provided by Retirement Planning Services. We are located in Knoxville, Tennessee. You can visit our website at SeriousRetirement.com. The information in this recording is intended for general educational and informational purposes only, and should not be construed as investment advisory, financial planning, legal, tax, or other professional advice based on your specific situation. Please consult with your professional advisor before taking any action based on its contents. Advisory services offered through Retirement Planning Services, LLC.